Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Woodpeckers Deep Dive. I'm Jeff Ferris, this is Jay Mouter, and today we're going to continue working on putting together Jay's router table. Last week we got the table assembled, and we got his router mounted into the PRL V2 lift. Today we're going to build his super fence. On mine that's already assembled here, you can see we've got it all together. Sacrificial fences on the face, extra track on the top so that you can put featherboards on. It's a very, very complete fence with a lot of features, and everything's component based, so you can change it, add to it, do different things, different configurations. We're going to go over all of that today.
Well, before we get started, I think you guys need to take a second. Please subscribe to our channel. You can turn on the notifications bell as well, so you'll be alerted whenever we release any kind of video content. So let's get started, Jeff. What's the first step?
The first thing to do is to get the dust port attached to the back.
All right, so to assemble your dust port, you're going to want to get all your hardware out and be sure to separate your screws. You're going to notice you have two different types of screws here. One with a self-tapping right at the end, and then these other flat looking ones. There's 5 of them included right here, but we only need 4. So Woodpeckers is nice enough that they provide extra hardware usually, so don't be alarmed if you have extra screws laying around at the end of it. So first we're going to connect the dust port to the dust port housing with these 4 screws. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And make sure when you're assembling this, you're not using an impact drill. Use a screwdriver. You do not want to over tighten these at all. Okay, so once you get your dust port attached to your dust port housing, you're going to want to grab your 2 end caps. Now you do have a right and a left. It's pretty simple. So the holes line up to the holes right here. And you're going to want to use your other type of screws that you have left there. Okay, so we just finished assembling the dust port housing. So now we're going to go ahead and install the dust port housing. And to do that, all you're going to need is these oval nuts and these socket screws. So you'll just need 2 of each. I already got the first one installed. Now putting these hex screws in, they're a little tricky, but luckily you only have to do this one time, or I suppose 2, because there's 2 hex screws. But what you're going to want to do, put it in there, slide it all the way down. And this is the part where we get to see who's good at using chopsticks. So you'll just need a small screwdriver and grab your hex key and just kind of finagle it until you get it to go through that hole. It's not super tricky, but you should be able to get it done. Now be sure to have your hex key inserted so you can control it from spinning, and install your oval nut. And then just thread that on just so slightly. There you go. And now you're ready to install your dust port housing. You're going to want to slide the oval nut into the groove of the dust port housing. And all I'm doing is just pushing on the socket screw to make the oval nut protrude enough to get that in there. And once those get in there, you can kind of just crank them down. And there you go.
So Jay, I see you've got the dust port on. Let's move on now and take a look at the way that this becomes a fence. So the piece that you put the dust port on is actually the base. It sits like that. And then these 2 shorter tracks are going to come up against that, and those become your actual fence surface, and they're adjustable so that you can open and close that for different sizes of bits. And the mechanism that we use to attach that to the base track is really very cool. It's this big, heavy chunk of ground cast aluminum. It's going to mount on there, and that's going to provide the mount for this. It slides in and out. The fence slides on it. I mean, it's just adjustable in every possible direction. And it's designed so that it's always perfectly square to the table. Okay, so our 2 set screws have got little nylon pads on them so that they can adjust our aluminum fence so that it's always perfectly perpendicular to the table. We'll just start those in for now. And then you can see that we can adjust that to maintain the angle of the fence to the table. Okay, next we're going to put in the bolts to attach it to the track. And for right now, we just want to stick that through there, take one of our oval nuts, and just get it started. We've got them ready. We're going to slide them into the track. Just have to get the nuts lined up parallel with the track and slide them in like that. To attach the fence to the base, we're going to use these finger knobs so that we can adjust that easily. We're going to put those in from the back and an oval nut on the front. And that side's ready.
Okay, Jeff, so we got the infeed bracket all assembled. Is the next step the outfeed bracket, or?
It is, but this is a little bit different. We probably should have pointed this out earlier. These aren't the same. You can see that the infeed side is taller than the outfeed side, and the spacing's all a little bit different. And there's some extra machining on the underside of the outfeed bracket. That's because it actually is set up so that it's independently adjustable. We've got this piece right here. When you put those two together, now they're at the same height. And what's going on here is this is set up so that our outfeed table can be independently adjustable for position. And we want that to move parallel. So we're going to take these two polished pins and drop them in those V-slots. Now the slots in the bracket are going to sit on that, and now that will always move in a straight line.
Jeff, that's a very similar design to the saw gauge.
It uses the same principle that these polished pins sitting in a V groove are going to always keep things properly aligned. Jay, put the set screws in that square the fence to the table. Okay. And while you're doing that, I will get the offset plate ready to install. Now we're just going to drop our polished pins in the base, and the base sits on like that. Now our red knobs come in to bring that down, and then we have exactly the same arrangement for the face that we had on the other side. We've got an oval nut and a black knob on that side. Okay, so now we're ready to slide our tracks in. 2 tracks to the back, 1 to the front. Jay, go ahead and do the other side while I get this one lined up.
Okay.
And now it's just about a fence.
All right, Jeff, so it's time to install this fence, but it looks like we got a ton of hardware here. What do we need out of this exactly?
Okay, well, Jay, we know that a lot of people buy the super fence to go on other router tables besides the Woodpeckers router table. Yep. So we have got extra hardware here to fit a regular homemade or different brand of router table.
Okay.
What we need for the Woodpeckers table is this setup right here. 2 2-inch bolts, 4 spacers, and 2 triangle knobs.
All right, let's get this installed. Can you grab the hardware for me, Jeff?
You bet.
Thanks. All right.
Okay. Now we're going to slide this side off, bring the bolt up from the bottom, drop on a couple of these nylon spacers, and one of the knobs.
Okay, so that just slides in.
That slides right into the track.
Down into that track.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Same thing on your side.
Okay. Well, 2 washers.
And now we've got a fence on your router table.
Perfect.
Just a couple more things that we're going to add to the fence on Jay's router table. First is our sacrificial fences. So usually on your router table, you want to get the fence as close to the cutter as you can. But with your aluminum fence, that's not a real good idea. You don't want to get that too close. So we're going to slide that a little bit further away. But we do, if we've got stock that is real prone to chipping, we'd actually like to have a perfect match between the fence face and the cutter. So all we have to do now is bring that in with the router running, and it will trim a perfect fit between the bit and the sacrificial fence.
So Jeff, if these sacrificial fences get too worn, is there a way to replace them?
Absolutely. You can make these out of anything. This is MDF with a nice veneer face. We sell these as replacements, or you can make them out of any 1/2-inch stock.
Cool.
Okay, to attach the sacrificial fences, we're going to drop this connector bolt through the hole and an oval nut on the back side. And then we'll just slide them in. Now, the sacrificial fences are great most of the time, but they do cause a couple problems. One of them is if you want to use a featherboard, there's no way to attach it. Typically, your featherboard attaches to the top slot, like that. Okay, but that top slot's not available once your sacrificial fence is installed. Well, we're not going to leave you out in the cold. We actually have an attachment specifically made to take care of that, and that is the featherboard track that goes on top. Okay, we're going to push a bolt up through the slot, drop on a nylon washer, and one of our little plastic knobs. Now that slides into the top track. You can position it anywhere you want it. We'll get it lined up with the front. And now we have the use of both our sacrificial fence and our featherboard at the same time. We're going to take our featherboard off, and we just have one more part to the super fence, and that is our clear guard. That's going to slide in our sacrificial track, and that's adjustable up and down, so you can get that right over top of the bit, keep you out of it, but still be able to see what you're doing. So Jay, your super fence is complete.
Awesome. I'm very excited and looking forward to finally getting to use this. I've never actually used a router table, so this is going to be a very good start.
Great. Hey, next week on Deep Dive, we're going to add some accessories to Jay's super fence, starting with the featherboards and several other things that you can add to this to make it even more convenient. Be sure and join us next week, Friday at 1:30 for Deep Dive.